lively cafe in Arles, France, glowing yellow against a dark blue sky. Cobblestones, tables scattered with people, gas lamps doing the work streetlights do now. This looks like the calmest, most romantic painting Van Gogh ever made. It isn't. Count the figures gathered under that awning. 12, clustered around one long-haired figure standing at the center, positioned exactly where the most important person at a table would stand if this were, say, the Last Supper. Look behind his head. The window frame splits into a cross right where a halo would sit, and off to the side, barely visible, a shadowy figure slips out through a doorway. Some researchers think that's Judas leaving the scene. Coincidence? To answer that, you have to know who painted this. Not the artist, the man. Before Van Gogh ever picked up a brush seriously, he wanted to be a minister, like his father. He failed the entrance exam, so in 1878, at 25, he took an unofficial post instead. Missionary to coal miners in a grim stretch of Belgium called the Borinage. And he didn't just preach at them. He moved into a run-down miner's hut, gave away nearly everything he owned, his clothes, even his own bed, and slept on the floor. He went down to the mines with them, 700 meters underground, to understand what their lives actually were. The miners started calling him the Christ of the coal mine. His superiors called it something else, excessive, fanatical. Within a year, his contract wasn't renewed. That's the part people skip when they talk about Van Gogh's religious phase. It wasn't a phase. It was a full attempt at a different life, and it ended in a quiet humiliation. He didn't pick up a paintbrush until the following year at 27, almost by default, because the thing he actually wanted had already thrown him out. So when you're standing in front of Café Terrace at night, wondering why a supposedly lapsed Christian would hide a Last Supper in a cafe scene 9 years later, that's why. You don't fully let go of the thing that defined you and humiliated you. You just stop doing it out loud. September 1888, Arles, France, Place du Forum. Van Gogh sets up an easel outdoors at night and paints by gaslight, something almost nobody else was doing. There is no black anywhere in this painting, not one drop. He told his sister he wanted a night painting built from nothing but blue, violet, green, and a yellow warm enough to glow off the canvas. For a night scene, in 1888, that's a rule book getting thrown out. Now, the theory itself, it comes from a researcher named Jared Baxter, who laid out his case at an arts conference in 2013. 12 figures around one central man, a Judas slipping into shadow, a cross hidden in a window frame. Some art historians back it, including Bill Kloss. Others push back hard. A dozen people at a Café Terrace is just what a Café Terrace looks like, then and now. And hunting for Christian code in ordinary crowd scenes is a trap art historians fall into constantly. It's a real, published, debated theory, not a confirmed fact. But knowing what this man actually tried and failed to become, it's genuinely hard to unsee that cross once you know where to look. Here's a detail that should make you suspicious of the whole painting actually. Van Gogh never signed it. Normally, that's a red flag. Half of art authentication runs on signatures, but here, it's the opposite of a mystery. He described this exact painting in detail in 3 separate letters. To his sister, to his brother, and to a fellow painter. We know precisely what this is, in his own words, down to the colors he mixed. The signature was never the point. The letters are the paper trail. Now, about that yellow and blue combination, because it's not just pretty, it's doing something specific. Yellow and blue sit on opposite sides of the color wheel, complementary colors. Set them side by side and they don't just coexist. They intensify each other. The gaslight looks like it's vibrating against that ink blue sky because chemically, on a color wheel, it basically is. This painting is Van Gogh figuring out a trick he'd lean on a year later, for a slightly more famous piece, the Starry Night. That cafe, by the way, still standing, Place du Forum, Arles. It's called Café Van Gogh now, repainted bright yellow to match the canvas, and tourists line up daily to hold their phones at the exact angle he painted from. A broke painter, who'd already been fired from the one calling he actually wanted, sits down for one night in 1888. 140 years later, an entire building rebuilds itself around where he happened to be looking. But here's the timeline that makes this painting harder to look at. 6 weeks after he finishes this canvas, Paul Gauguin moves in with him. Van Gogh had been begging for him to come for months. His dream of an artist commune, finally happening. It goes well for a while, then it doesn't. 3 months after this painting, on December 23rd, the two men have a violent falling out. That night, Van Gogh cuts off parts of his own ear. Within half a year, he's checked into an asylum. Café Terrace at night was painted right at the edge of that cliff. One of the last calm nights before everything came apart. So which is it? A peaceful evening? Or a man who'd already been told once that his devotion was too much, quietly building himself one more sacred scene before everything caved in? Maybe it's both. 12 people gathered around someone standing in the light, a cross hidden in a window frame. A man who wanted, more than anything else, to serve something bigger than himself, got rejected doing it the direct way, and found himself reaching for it 9 years later with a paintbrush instead of a pulpit. That's not just a night scene. That's a man reaching for solid ground, one more time, the only way he had left. He never sold this painting, never saw the cafe that would eventually take his name, never knew this canvas would end up reproduced more than almost anything else he made. He packed up his easel, walked back into a life that was already starting to unravel, and left behind a painting people still argue about more than a century later. 12 people, one man in the light, a cross nobody was supposed to notice. Coincidence or code? You decide.